Hi everybody! Today's video is my reading wrap up for June 2024. I ended up reading 14 books in June, which was insane. And I read one novella. I finished up another book that I hadn't finished from May. And I started a book in June, but that I was supposed to read in June but didn't finish. So Oh, and I had two books that I DNF'd. So I'm not counting those as I actually read the whole book. So yeah, that's a lot of books. I was really feeling the stress trying to get these books read this month. And still, there were a couple of books that I wanted to read that I actually didn't get to read. Yeah, I know. Call me crazy for thinking I could read all these books in 1 month, but I tried. I did pretty well, I think. Um, so first up, I finished my read of The Relic of Gods by Philip C. Quaintrell, and this is the third book in the Echoes saga. This is I think, a 9-book series, and it's broken up into separate trilogy story arcs. So this is the last book in this story arc. And because of this, we have decided, myself and the other buddy readers in the group I'm in, have decided that we're going to take a break from this series for a few months since it's a good stopping point, and we're going to go back and read the prequel series about the character Asher. So I'm looking forward to finding out about him. I ended up giving this book 4 stars. I thought it wrapped up the series really well, and if you'd like to read my review on my blog, I have a link to my blog down below. Second book that I read in June. Don't know why I'm talking about May. The second book I read in June is The Elusive Miss Ellison by Carolyn Miller. This was a Regency romance that I've had on my to read list for a really long time, and I finally got around to reading it, and I ended up enjoying this book. I gave it 3.5 stars. I also have a review on my blog of this book. The thing that I had a little bit of an issue with this book was because I felt like the Christian themes were very heavy-handed. I tend to like the Christian themes in these books to be more woven into the story in a more subtle way. But anyway, I gave it 3.5 stars. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it enough that I want to continue with the series. And I'm looking forward to seeing what the next book is about. The next book I read was a novella. This is in the Kate Burkholder series. It's between the last book that was published and the next one, The Burning, which is coming out this month. It was called Dark Storm Rising, and these little novellas in this series are nice. They're never spectacular, but I kind of just enjoy reading them because they just add a little bit of extra to the character development. This one I ended up giving 3 stars to. After I read this, I ended up doing my reread of Dragons of Spring Dawning, the last book in the Dragonlance Chronicles. This was a buddy read that I did, and I ended up giving this book 5 stars all over again, even though I know that's mostly for nostalgic reasons. The books are definitely a lot lighter on the character development details than I remembered from when I first read them, but I still love these books. I still love the characters. So I'm keeping my rating there. These are books that introduced me to fantasy, so I love them because of that too. Next, I ended up reading my Pick It For Me book for the month of June, and this one was Happiness for Beginners by Catherine Center. And this book I actually saw as a movie first on Netflix, and I enjoyed the movie, and I didn't know it was based on a book, but when I found out it was based on a book, I decided I wanted to try the book because, usually the book is even better, and it was. I enjoyed the book even more. I ended up giving the book 4 stars. After that, I ended up reading the next Hercule Poirot book on my list, and it was The Third Girl. I don't think any of the later books in the series are the best in the series, but I enjoyed this one enough that I gave it 4 stars. Also this month, I ended up doing a reread of Dark Matter by Blake Crouch because that was the book that my in-person book club chose to read. And I enjoyed this book about the same as I did the first time I read it. I think my original rating was 4 stars. I might be leaning a little bit more to 3.5 stars this time around, but it was still a good book, and it ended up producing some nice book club chat about it. We had a lot to say about the elements of the book. I don't think it's a spoiler for me to say that it was a multiverse books and how it worked in this book and what didn't really work so well in this book, which I also put in my review of the book. After this, I read this series. It's an urban fantasy series by Haley Edwards called Yardbirds. I read the first book called Crazy as a Loon. This looked like it was going to be such a hoot. Old people in an urban fantasy just sounded great, and I really thought this was going to lean into the humor more, but unfortunately it wasn't nearly as funny as I thought it was going to be, so I was a little disappointed in it. But I have to say, the best part of this book, the funniest part of this book, is the main character's husband. He died, and he was cursed when he died, and his soul, consciousness, whatever it is still hanging around. And you know those fake wall bass that you can buy that talk? Well, the main character has put his consciousness in this talking wall bass, so that was pretty funny. Other than that, I was a little disappointed there wasn't more humor in this book. I ended up giving it 3 stars. Next, I read The Burning by Linda Castillo. This is the latest book in the Kate Burkholder series. This one, I have to say, was really hard to read, at least in the beginning, because it has such a horrific murder in this book, and you get part of it from the victim's point of view. That was hard to read. It was hard to get through. Overall, I enjoyed the book. It wasn't one of my favorites in the series. It was a 3-star read for me, so kind of average for the series. The main character, she has a tendency to do these things that aren't very well thought out and that I think are a little bit stupid, but she does this in every single book almost, so I'm used to it. I still enjoy the books, and I still want to keep reading them despite that complaint. I read The Liar's Girl by Catherine Ryan Howard. This is the second book I've read by this author. The first book was The Nothing Man. I really enjoyed The Nothing Man. It was really good. It's a psychological suspense type mystery, and both of those books, The Liar's Girl as well, were just really solid, well written. Loved the suspense, loved trying to figure out the twists. Some of them I got right, some of them I didn't, but I ended up giving this book, The Liar's Girl, 4 stars. And I'm looking forward to reading more of her books in the future. After that, I read Love at the House Party, a Regency romance by Casey Stockton. I had read another series by Casey Stockton and really enjoyed it, so I was looking forward to trying out another book series by her. This book is not the first book in the series, but they're companion books, so it's not that important that you read them in order. Ideally, I would have, but I was doing a color challenge with a couple of other friends on Goodreads, and I needed a pink book. So this book is pink, and it's the 3rd book in the series. I really enjoyed this book, and I'm looking forward to reading the rest of the series. I ended up giving it 4 stars. After that, I did my reread of Soul Taken. This is a reread that I'm doing. I'm listening to the audio with my husband. We've been doing this since last year. We've been reading this series and the Anna and Charles series in chronological order together. And this was the last one that we had to read before the new book comes out. And so I ended up keeping my rating for Soul Taken at 4 stars. After Soul Taken, I decided to go back and read another romance novel. This one was a contemporary romance, though. It is the fourth book in the Blue Heron Cottages series that I've been reading. It's called Restaurant on the Wharf by Kay Carell. I really, really liked the first book in this series. It had some really heart-touching and heartwarming moments in it with these two sisters that met for the first time. One of them who was homeless at the time because she had lost her job, and the other one had been adopted and grew up in a wealthy home. And it was just really such a good read for me. It was emotional. It was a great women's fiction. It has romance in it, but it's mostly women's fiction, I feel like. And the rest of the books in this series, I have to say, I haven't enjoyed quite as much. I don't feel like the storylines were as good or as compelling, but I'm still liking this series enough to keep reading it. And I want to find out what happens to the characters in this town and the new ones that travel and come into the town to visit. There's always somebody new that comes and stays at the Blue Heron Cottages, and they get involved in the town, and we get to see what's going on in this new person's life that sometimes is a little mysterious, sometimes is kind of obvious, but I enjoy that aspect of the books a lot. So I ended up giving Restaurant on the Wharf 3 stars. I think it was probably my least favorite book out of the 4 so far, but it wasn't bad. 3 stars is a good book. It's just not great. Next, I did my buddy read of Inheritor, the 3rd book in the Foreigner series by C.J. Cherryh, and this one I ended up giving 4 stars to. It started out a little annoying. Sometimes the politics in these books, or any books that has a lot of politics in it, starts getting annoying to me. But once we moved past that and got into the meat of the story, it took off. So 4 stars for this one, and I'm looking forward to continuing. All right, next I tried to read a Timothy Zahn book that I got off of NetGalley. It was an ARC. And I have loved everything that I've read by Timothy Zahn, and it's not this book's fault. It's really my fault. It's called Cloaked Deception. I ended up DNFing this book because I guess I didn't read the description, didn't really pay enough attention to it. I was thinking it was a sci-fi book like his other books are. This one was a political thriller, and I just couldn't get in the mood for it. So I didn't finish this one. I will maybe revisit it later when I'm in the right mood, because it's probably a really good book. I just couldn't get in the mood for it. So no rating on that one right now because I didn't finish it. Also, another book that I did not finish, A Killing on the Hill by Robert Dugoni. I was looking forward to reading this book. I love his Tracy Crosswhite books. And this one was very different. It ended up being a little bit, I don't know, boring. So I did not finish it, and I also didn't rate this one. And I probably won't revisit this one because it's just not for me. And then finally, I've got to read Winter Lost by Patricia Briggs, one of the books I've been looking forward to reading the most this year. Gave it 4 stars. There were a few small annoyances in the book, but overall I liked it. I enjoyed the mythology and things that were included in the book. And my husband, Buddy, read this one with me because he has come to love these characters in this world just as much as me, I think. He really enjoys the mythology and the mythological things that Patricia Briggs puts in her books, and the way that she can adapt it to her world, keeping it true to what it originally is. So he really likes that aspect of books, and I enjoy that aspect of the books too. After that, I listened to The Burning Witch 3. This is the final book in the Burning Witch trilogy by Delmhawk. And this one, I have enjoyed this trilogy, but not as much as I did The House Witch. I liked the House Witch wasn't straight up cozy fantasy. It did have some darker things happening, and especially in like the second and third books, but it still had some coziness to it. It had some lightheartedness to it, and it had a lot of humor, and that is what I really loved about The House Witch. I feel like The Burning Witch does not have as much of those things, and I'm missing those things a bit. But I enjoyed this trilogy. I gave the last book 3 stars, which is the lowest I've given any of them because I just didn't like it as much as the first 2. But still, it was a good book, and I'm glad that I read it. The last book that I started reading in June was A Whisper of Sorrows by J.D. Kirk. This is the 6th book in the DCI Logan crime series, and I did not finish this book in June. I started it, but I have to tell you, these books can be pretty dark. They have some disturbing deaths in them, or disturbing murders sometimes. This one really pushed the boundaries of what I can handle in a book like this. It was not an easy read, and these books usually incorporate more humor in them, and this one was missing some of that humor, which made it even heavier and harder to get through. But I feel like once this was the end of a kind of a story arc per se, and I feel like now that we've gotten past this, maybe the next books in the series will be a little bit lighter. I'm hoping so. I don't want to go back to one that was this hard to read. I gave that one 3 stars. Not my favorite because of the content and the subject matter. But anyway, that is my wrap up for June, and I will see you in the next video with my to be read list for July. Bye.